Hello, welcome to our opportunity to discuss our guidance and rules for the innovation call for proposals 2022. Okay, today we're going to take a chance to sit back. We've had multiple discussions on things such as financial sustainability. We've had other discussions on rules and guidance. We've other discussions on how to write a proposal. So what we're going to do today is to try and bring a lot of those elements together to give you an overview on the rules and the guidance to comply. Okay, so this should be what we would call, if anything, a quick recap on some elements that have been done in different meetings, but bring it together just for innovation. Okay, so today we will be recording this and you'll be able to access it, the video later. The slides will be there too. And this will be co-hosted by myself, Gareth McNaughton, Director of Innovation. And also we have Adriana Diaz from headquarters who'll be presenting some of the slides. You will be free to answer questions. And if you put them into the chat box, they'll be fed through to us, okay? What we would ask today is a little bit of time to be able to, every about 5-6 slides, we'll have a stop and check to see if we can answer the questions. That will just help us keep the flow as we're covering about 5-6 different themes. So the next slide, please. So today, as I said, we're going to tick lots of boxes, hit lots of things. It's the general requirements on eligibility, etc. Then the call specific requirements, and this will link to the things that we've mentioned on the duration, the challenge areas, the mandatory KPIs, definition of city definitions, and demonstrators. Then we'll look at the financial aspects and recap part of that. And then we will revisit the evaluation and selection process specifically for innovation so that you can understand what we'll be looking for and what the evaluators want to see. Okay, now we've got Q&A at the end. Of course, we'll do the Q&A at the end. But I suggest that after each of these sections, we give some time just so that we can answer the questions while they're fresh in your mind. Okay, so as of today, I would like to go to the next slide and we will be able to hand over to Adriana.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Gareth, and thank you all for being here in this webinar. I will go through the first part of the presentation and with the general rules for eligibility. I will tell you a bit about the partner composition and the origin of the partners that can be in the proposals. So in innovation proposals, we are expecting for a minimum of 3 cities, also 2 partners from EU member states or Horizon Europe associate countries. There is a footnote over there related to a bit of the transition that we're going through to Horizon Europe. From industry, we require a minimum of 2 industry partners and 1 SME. This SME can be one of the 2 industry partners. Take into account that the innovation program call for proposals is open, as I was saying, to member states of the European Union and Horizon Europe associate countries. Next slide, please. So a little bit of explaining the types of partners that we have. So just to keep in mind, the key partners we have 3 categories. The core partners, tier 1. So they are members of our community, of our EIT urban mobility community. They pay an annual fee and they can participate in any call. The core partners in tier 2 are also members of our membership, of our association, and they can participate in any call. Project partners are not members of our EIT Urban Mobility Association and they pay a specific fee. They can participate in our call, but they have a capped limit of funding. 2 more definitions to keep in mind. Affiliated entities. These are entities with a legal link to a core partner of EIT Urban Mobility and they can participate in the call. And third parties refer to contractors, subcontractors, other type of contributors. They cannot participate in the call as direct beneficiaries. And big point to keep in mind is that only an EIT Urban Mobility core partner or an experienced proposal partner can be a lead applicant in your proposal. Experienced project partners are those that have already participated in our Business Plan 2020 or are participating in the Business Plan 2021. Next slide, please. So we go more into the call-specific requirements. For innovation, we expect proposals that develop solutions, services, or products that are technology readiness level TRL 6 and above. You are going to find these when you will receive another session about Plaza that will explain more about where to find stuff, but just including it here. It's in tab 3 under the market assessment in Plaza. That's where you have to provide information about the TRL of your proposal and your solution. The innovation program will accept proposals of 12, 18, and 24 months duration. So you need to be very clear about the duration of your proposal when you submit it. You submit the very detailed activity plan for 2022. And we expect you also to provide like a 2023 high-level activity plan, but it shouldn't come as a surprise that your proposal is multi-year. Make it very, very clear in the proposal. The financial thresholds that we're going to cover shortly refer to the maximum budget that it's allocated per year. We will not support proposals beyond 24 months. There will be other channels to support successful proposals and projects via the factory or business creation. Next slide, please. So a quick reminder about our 4 challenge areas. The innovation program is focusing on 4 challenge areas in this call in 2022. So we have covered these, but I will be quickly to remind you what we're looking for. We're looking for proposals that address challenges in active mobility. So projects that increase the active mobility in our cities, and this refers to physical activity. We're talking about walking, cycling, pedal-assisted, e-bikes, kick scooters, skateboards, not really mopeds. So electric scooters that are part of solutions that have to do with physical activity can be included, but should not be the main focus of your proposal. Regarding future mobility, we're talking about disruptive technologies. So think about technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, 5G, Internet of Things, and how they are shaping mobility these days in our cities. They enable the creation of new services, such as mobility as a service, or shared micro mobility services, autonomous driving, or urban air mobility. This is the spectrum of digitalization solutions that we expect to receive. For sustainable city logistics, when we refer to freight transport, we're talking about the transport of goods, and this includes the parcel delivery, delivery of building materials to construction sites, and domestic and commercial waste disposal. So these are all included in the definition, and what we're looking for are projects that make city logistics more sustainable. These solutions should look at the cooperation between different partners. They can also look at the use of new vehicles, the creation of innovative business models, or how new technologies are being deployed to make city logistics more sustainable. When we talk about mobility and energy, we're mainly referring to replacing internal combustion engine vehicles with cleaner fuel propulsion solutions. This requires new vehicle technologies, but also charging or refilling supply. This, again, as for the other challenge areas, requires new partnerships, business models. And here, I think in many cases, they also imply new infrastructure. So for electric vehicles to be adopted in many urban areas, you need a proper charging infrastructure that is missing these days. And refilling stations for alternative vehicles to e-vehicles. Those are also expected to appear in your proposals. A quick suggestion here is when you develop your proposal, when you're writing your submission, keep in mind your fit to the challenge area. And if the solution sort of fits multiple challenge areas, play to your strongest challenge area fit. You must decide which elements to emphasize and what you can deliver within the time frame. So when you make this choice, think about 2022 as the year of implementation of your proposal. Garrett, I see that some questions are popping up. Do you want to cover them before we move to the next slide?
That would probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
So one of the questions that came up was, where is there space for a 2023 action plan, which we said had to be limited? Plaza will allow an additional tab under your work plan. So you've your work plan 2022, there will be an option to have a work plan 2023. We already enabled that last year. It wasn't actually used by many partners. I think last year only 3 partners used that function. So we will be highlighting when we do the Plaza training the option to both fill in your work plan 2022 and then also enable the additional field to appear directly below it, work plan 2023. Okay, so that will be dealt with. There was another question that came in, which was on the partner fees. Now, I would love to be able to give an answer to you on the partner fees. Currently, we're waiting for that to be clarified. There are some limits and thresholds which are based on what we know and from our previous experience, but we are hoping that we will have full clarification, and that will be with our PMO. So I apologize, we can't give you. Guidance has been about maximum 20% of what you have been awarded, okay? We do not know if that will continue, okay? Now, other question that we had was, can both the industry partners be SMEs? Yes, they can. There's not a problem. There has to be a minimum of one SME, but both industry partners could be SMEs. Additionally, for affiliated entities, is there a maximum funding expected? Now, remember that this year, for those of you who know our program, we used to have a term called linked third parties, which was a little bit confusing. Now we are translating that the old term, which is like a subsidiary of the mother organization. For example, if you had a company headquarters in Belgium and they also had a division in Spain, the main entity that's a member of the IT could be the division in the Netherlands, but they want the software development to be done by the Spanish division. That Spanish division would have the main number and would be a subsidiary or that linked third party to the core partner. In the new program of Horizon Europe, we call that affiliated entities, which is clear, okay? So if the organization has a limit as a partner, a threshold, so for example, if it's 300 or 400,000 for the partner in their category, that would apply to the actual affiliated entity. Okay, so the affiliated entity should be seen for all intents and purposes as part of the mother organization. Okay, so the same limits would apply. Now, I think that's the questions that we've got coming in. Let's just check. For project partner, the limit is 150,000 euro. Is this still valid? Okay, that's the question which I'm waiting for. I would think that the guidance of around 150 should be what you work with until we get further clarification. But working with around that 150,000 for a project partner would be appropriate right now. It may go up a little, okay? But right now, 150 is good to work with. Okay, so I think that is all the questions we have on this section.
For now.
Yep, okay.
So maybe we can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so the key performance indicators. You will find this for each of the challenge areas, and we have made it very clear what the mandatory KPIs and the additional KPIs that you need to consider when preparing your proposal. All innovation proposals should commit to either a marketed innovation, which is an EIT HE 02.1, or the creation of a startup, which is an EIT HE 04.1. You will find out more about how to fill this in Plaza during the webinar that is dedicated to Plaza, but just keep those two codes in mind. So there are no mistakes. These are for innovation, the mandatory KPIs, as well as the city engagements in a proposal, which is the KONHE 03.2. We expect, as we were saying, 3 city engagements in projects, and that you will see that in the part of the demonstration. So additional KPIs to keep in mind: the demonstration pilot living labs, public realm improvements, number of external and internal events, co-funding rates, and design tested innovation. So we've done a lot of work during the last year to make this and respond to feedback from partners and projects about making KPIs easier to track and to provide evidence. Next slide, please. So as we were saying, the KPIs for innovation proposals, we're looking for 3 city demonstrations. Innovation proposals should demonstrate pan-European solutions within the proposal life cycle. So the demonstration impact, what do we expect to see? Evidence, city engagement, and resources committed to the implementation of the solution. And what do we understand as a city? It can be a city district, so a solution that is implemented in a neighborhood or a zone of a special interest, or a city that is represented by a government unit, think about a municipality, or affiliate such as a transport organization. Or it can be an urban area, so a conglomeration of a functional area composed of many neighboring cities or government units. What is the definition of a living lab? Living labs are use-centered open innovation ecosystems based on systematic user co-creation approach. There will be a session that is dedicated to the living lab, so I invite you to join that session as well. I am going to move to the next slide, and then we can review the questions, if that's okay with you. Or before we move into the financial aspects, Gareth? There is one question about
questions.
About partnership. Yeah, how to become a core partner and where should the organization be registered?
On becoming a core partner. So importantly, since we're an organization and a community, it's not like an application of you just write in and you join. So what you would normally do, depending on your geographic region, you will have a hub. We have a hub in Prague, we have a hub in Munich, we have a hub in Helmond, Eindhoven, we have a hub in Barcelona, and we have a hub in Copenhagen. So you'll be, your mother or your home organization would be that hub. And what happens is you would apply to the hub, you would have some activity with those partners, you would meet them, go to meetings, and then you would make a formal proposal on becoming part of that hub, and they would have a vote on that, and they would welcome you into the organization. Once you were in the hub as a core partner, you would then have the same voting rights as them, both on the hub level and within the General Assembly. So that thing takes a while, and you have to build those relationships and contribute. So I wouldn't expect an organization right now that's not a core member to be able to, between now and the application day, be able to process that. So right now, lead, as we said, is going to be an existing core partner or someone who has been an active, experienced participant in the last 2 business plans. So this might mean you might have to reach out to other organizations that are already involved in the program, and you can find links on our main webpage to our partners. Okay, that's that question. The other question came up was...
It has to do with the KPIs. So I think for the mandatory KPIs, is there or exclusive, or they can be used, both of them as main KPIs?
We would love you to use both of them. Okay, we would love, and that's great to see. But we would not disqualify you if you only had one. If you've got one, that's a mandatory requirement. So you must have one of those 2 main mandatory KPIs. And then, of course, the 3 cities is what we've made as a pan-European aspect. That has to be done this year. Yep. So happy to have more of your KPIs.
So we can move to the financial aspects of the innovation call. This is a summary table of the budget allocation. Having defined challenge areas also allows us to have an estimation of what is going to be allocated to each of them. So you can have an expectation of the number of proposals that will be funded and the size of the proposal. So for active mobility, you will have a maximum of 1.4 million euro projects. That means 3 proposals. We expect to see 2 of 500k euros and perhaps 1 smaller project of 400k euros. For sustainable city logistics, we believe that these innovation projects might be a little bit larger for implementation, and the maximum allocated budget for this challenge area is 1.9 million euros. That will be, we expect to split in 2 proposals of 950k. For future mobility as well, we are thinking of 4 proposals, 2 large, 2 perhaps smaller innovation proposals. So the maximum allocated budget for this challenge area is 2.7 million euros. For the large projects, we expect 2 of 950k. For the smaller solutions, innovation projects, we believe perhaps 450k. So keep that in mind when you develop your proposal. And for energy, as we were saying, it might be that innovative solutions require a bit more of investment. And for this reason, we expect only perhaps 2 innovation proposals of 900 and 950k. Just a small note for your information. So innovation projects that are in BP 2021, we expect to fund in the next year. They can, it's possible that they get a 12 or a 3 months extension. And for that, we have reserved, let me move this, 2.5 million euros to support this proposal. So we have a 7.7 million euros for new projects and 2.5 million expected to go into continuation innovation projects. Can we move to the next financial aspect? So co-funding, we said this before, all innovation proposals must have a minimum of a funding of 30%. If you go above 30%, that's an evidence of integration and coordination, so that's well seen. But you have all the freedom to see how the 30% co-funding rate is distributed across the project. It doesn't have to be per partner, it's per project. No, okay. I will finish all the financial aspects and get back to the questions, if that's okay, Gara. Very quickly, because you can go back to the financial sustainability mechanism webinar, but which was already given a few weeks ago, and you can find it on our website. So for people that don't know our community that well, this is just a reminder. So all EIT kicks are expected to become independent. And for that, as projects and activities are funded, we expect the output, so the new product, the solution, the service, to generate a revenue that becomes like a return to the investment that EIT Urban Mobility is doing. The revenue generated by the consortium partners it comes from the commercialization of your outputs. That becomes the financial sustainability contribution. And next slide, please. So in the case of innovation, the FSM refers to the revenue that comes from the marketed solution or the equity share from startups that are created on their innovation projects. So this is a very simple graphic way of sort of letting you know how it works. You have a KPI, so you go for the KPI of your innovation project. You define the period of the contract, which is 4 to 5 years from the beginning of the sales of your solution, and the type of transaction. So what is the form of your FSM mechanism? Percentage of the income or the revenue or an amount per transaction. In the case of the creation of a new startup, the period of the contract it will start from the creation of the company, And the type of transaction, it's the equity. It's the corresponding percentage of ownership. Next slide, please. It is very important as you develop your commercialization strategy that you clearly state the commercial partner of your innovation proposal. The commercial partner can be the activity leader, but it doesn't have to be. We expect it to be an industrial or profit-making company, as they could share more easily the revenue. They will have more structure for profit-making. Then they are entitled to sign the commercial agreement contract with the IT Urban Mobility with the binding terms and conditions. And there will be a track record of sales and income generation that will be positively assessed when your proposal is evaluated. So if you can demonstrate that the commercial partner is experienced in commercializing products, that will give EIT Urban Mobility confidence that the commercialization strategy will be successfully implemented. The next slide. I think I'm getting to the final slide. Yeah, if you want, Gareth, I can take a look at the questions before we go into the evaluation and selection project.
Yeah, that would be great. Yep.
So let me recap because I only see one. Mm-hmm. Is it correct to assume that in 18 24-month projects, there can be one city demonstration in 2022 and 2 city demonstrations in 2023?
Aha. So yes, that is possible. Okay. But make sure we have a tab, which is tab 3. And in tab 3, it's additional information. You must detail the commitment of those cities. And we will ask in negotiation, if you're approved, for actual detailed qualification and support and evidence that those cities are engaged in the project and will demonstrate. Of course, it might be speculative, so that's why in the negotiation phase, we will ask for confirmation. The pan-European aspect of our demonstration is essential, okay? We cannot have subsidizing one city, and we will be giving serious scrutiny to what's proposed and how it's done, okay? So please be aware of that and know that we will be coming back to you, because if you're approved and then we suddenly come to you at the end of June and we'll say we need to conclude negotiations and discussions of conditions within a month to a month and a half, you might have to go back to those cities and desperately try and get something done in summer. So please be aware of that and prep for that, okay?
Okay, the other question has to do with commercialization. It says, is it possible to have more than one commercializing partner?
Did you know it is possible to have more than one commercializing partner? Now, there's 2 aspects to this question. The first question, if we divide it, the first part would be the same product, but you decide geographically to divide the market and to be able to push. So it could be you geographically divide a market or you sectorally divide a market. So certain people go after selling to cities, certain people go after selling to companies. That would be a logical division, okay? So you would be able to have 2 commercial agreements for that with both signatories signing, and you would have to have a back-to-back agreement dividing that. Secondly, the other option is if you had 2 solutions coming out of a proposal, which are 2 separate products, services, or solutions, and they are 2 different parties, which is 2 completely separate agreements, okay? So you can have more than one party, either developing the same product, service, solution for different markets, and you divide that, or for different products from the same project, okay?
Another question has to do with project partners. It says, is there a cap of 150K for project partner per year?
It has been to date per year. And I say that in caveat again, because we had 150K as the figure. That may increase, it may not, but that's the figure. And so it would be expected for some continuity, that would be expected for the second year. But again, a caveat, okay, that's what we currently have as the reference, okay. You know the EU, they tend not to deviate too much. They don't make huge, big, jumpy changes in what they do. So that should be your base reference right now.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions, so we can move on to the evaluation.
Okay. So I get to take your time and attention now. Okay, so just to recap, so that we understand, the evaluation process is truly important, so you understand what you're being judged on and how this will be done in what timeline. So the timeline we have here is the admissibility and eligibility check will be done in the first week when you submit. Now that's done internally to make sure you meet the rules and requirements. Now, when it comes to the second point, this is the quality evaluation, and it's divided into 2A and 2B. For example, there's an element we're going to call strategic fit, which we will highlight in a second what that is. And it's just 3 short questions that gets you 5 points each. There's a threshold there. And so that's important that in each of those 3 questions, you should get a minimum of 3 points. Then if you get through that strategic fit, they will assess the full proposal and it will be quite detailed, and we'll go through, and there's about 2 weeks allocation time. You will end up with 3 different experts having completed individual evaluation reports, an IER, okay? And that will be their breakdown of your project into 3 areas. After that, we have consensus meetings, and this is where we have a rapporteur that goes through those individual reports, makes a general consolidation, highlights inconsistencies or questions between the evaluators, and we have a meeting where we bring them together, we discuss the discrepancies, differences of opinions, the average scores, and how they feel about that, and we may highlight any inconsistencies to be discussed. Then there will be a call report and a final consensus report made. And that will move forward into what we call the portfolio selection, where the ranking list and the portfolio selection are the conditions. For example, if we found that you had a proposal in which you had great commitment from 2 cities, but the 3rd city justification was exceptionally weak, we might turn around and say, you know, this is the condition we will put on this. We will approve and we'll finance this project, but we want greater commitment from your 3rd city and justification for their engagement in 2023. And that would be what we would prepare for that portfolio selection. The ranking list of preferred funding and also any conditions or requests to be made. Then we would communicate the results to you. You would get your summary evaluation report with your positive points, negative points, and scores. And for those of you who are moving forward to be considered for award, you would get those conditions and recommendations that we'd ask you to respond to. Okay, so that's the full process. Next slide. Excuse me, 1 second. Thank you. Okay, so the role and who's involved in this. So importantly, there are external evaluators, and they do that quality check that we talked about, the strategic fit, and then the full proposal evaluation. And the outcome of their work is an individual evaluation report with scores in the areas given. They have a list of predefined questions which you are able to see too, so you will be able to know exactly what they're scoring against. There is a rapporteur. The rapporteur is an independent arbiter who will not be reading your proposal and giving it a score. They're there to summarize the 3 different experts' individual evaluation report and prepare draft of a summary evaluation report. We will then discuss this in the consensus meetings, and we will come to agreements on the final scores given, and we will justify and explain any opinions or variations within that. Finally, the rapporteur will do the evaluation results list for that challenge area only, okay? So a rapporteur works in a challenge area, okay? So they will work on that list. And finally, they will provide the call report for the challenge area. On top of that, this year, based on requests of our partners, we're going to have an observers, okay? So we've asked for an independent external observer who will be appointed, who has multiple years of experience across European programs and comes from one of our national contact points. They will be able to attend any consensus meeting or the portfolio selection meetings. They will be able to read any individual evaluation report and consider any of the consensus reports to ensure that there's adequate consistency between what individual reports and what the consensus reports. They will be able to read the minutes of the meetings, and importantly, at the end of the proposal, that they will write a 4-page report on the experience of the whole evaluation life cycle and adherence to the rules and guidance, and that will be made available to anybody by the end of July on the process. Okay, so that's the 3 main rules that you'll need to know about. The next slide. So the admissibility and checks, this is going into details. You will have a check on the eligibility of the proposal, and this is what you need to know. And it's quite simple. You know, you must complete the full form in Plaza with all the information in each section. The lead applicant has to be eligible to be a lead applicant. The partners composition is important. There's 3 cities. There's 2 partners from member states. There's 2 industry partners, at least one's an SME. And you have to identify a commercial partner lead, at least one, as you know, someone's highlighted. There could be more projects. The co-funding rate has to be 30. There has to be pan-European demonstration, and there has to be the KPIs that are mandatory requirements. That's quite simple, and we'll do that in-house. If you were to be rejected at this stage, you would be informed, okay? And you would then have an option to appeal to say, I believe that I did meet the admissibility and eligibility check, and we will review that. And there's a process that you will find a link to in a document on the appeals process. Now, that's just in-house. Then we assign it to the experts. And the next slide. They go to this important check. So strategic fit, and then the full proposal evaluation. Importantly, as we've highlighted, we will be sharing with you those strategic fit questions, which are here. It's, do you provide a core KPI, which is either or both, and maximum will be 5 points. Then there will be challenge area if you submitted, if you meet. Remember, in the challenge area, we gave you the scope, expected, the issues involved and expected outcomes. So your proposal should reference some of those challenges and some of those expected outcomes and some of those issues, okay? And then finally, additional EIT. Now we will be giving, on the website, we have a frequently asked questions document. We've had a few questions coming in on the strategic fit and how people get 5 points compared to 3 points, especially if there's going to be a threshold. So we will be publishing that, and we'll be putting it in the frequently asked questions so that you can know exactly how to get 5 points in that, okay? So we realize that further clarity has been requested on that, and we'll be publishing that, okay? Next slide. So this is when it gets to the big points, okay? So excellence, impact, and implementation. You get 25 points, 30 points, and 30 points. Now, how to actually get those points. So again, in the call document, you will see for innovation, we have given you specific gray titles with some sub-questions below it. So you understand how you get those points. Per gray subsection, there will be 5 points. For example, in excellence, if we look here, there is going to be a proposal question on smart, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound. You'll get 5 points for that. On the aims and the proposal outcomes, you will get 5 points. Although there's 2 questions, you only get 5 points for that. On the innovation potential, there are 3 questions and each of them gets 5 points. The total is 25, okay? So think about this when how much time you spend on answering each of these questions. Make sure that. So the maximum is 5 points, okay, for each section, okay? The total comes up to 30 points. Again, I'm not going to go through this. You can read. So while there might be 4 questions there, remember it's when the second topic is proposal properly identifies deliverables, milestones, although that's 1 question, you still get 5 points. So please make sure you give enough attention and time in your application based on the point allocation, not how many questions have we posed. Okay, next slide. Quality, again, in general, if you had a 0 Information requested is missing, either filled in or not provided. To get an excellent, the information provided is outstanding, details, clarity, coherence, and is exactly aligned to the specific call. Again, 4 is adequate, sufficiently outlined. 3 is adequately outlined, however, some aspects are unclear or insufficiently detailed. Okay, so this should be basically the guidance that you have. This is in the document. Now, we have one more slide to go and then we'll answer some questions. So the final scoring, let's recap. From the 3 external evaluators, they may provide an independent evaluation report that justifies their scoring. Okay, they cannot give a score without justification. And this will, including the strategic fit, add up to 100 points. The breakdown is 15 for strategic fit, excellence 25, impact 30, implementation 30. Okay, now we do have some questions. So why don't we take them? I'll just look on my screen for those now.
Yeah, there is a question about, can the industry partner SME be the commercial lead partner in the proposal as well?
Did you know the industry partner or the SME partner, we would love it if they were the commercial leads. It's only natural that those organizations that have a history in selling and that have, you know, things like CRM systems to track clients, billing systems that are trackable, and you know, many of our partners that are either research organizations or universities, it's not their core expertise to sell and to make money. And for many of our cities, it's their interest to get the benefit of the solutions, not necessarily to become a vendor. So it would normally be the industry partner for the commercial lead. Whoever the commercial lead should have history and a strength to justify why they're that. So the SME and the industry partner are the natural choice. Okay. Any other questions on this one?
No, not so far. I think we can move.
Okay, right. Next slide, please. The consensus meeting. So last year there was some questions on the discussions that we had and how, so we will make sure that this year some of the critiques that have been given will be fully covered. So the rapporteur will be in the evaluation panel. So, and they will do a first draft summary from the individual reports. Okay, so they will read the 3 individual reports. They will bring together the draft summary, the comments, if there's consistency or inconsistency, and they will draft that. This summary evaluation report will be discussed with the coordinator from our organization. So for example, the draft summary reports, the first draft, I will read through. If there's any inconsistencies or questions that we can answer, we will do that at that time. Then we will have a prep meeting, and the summary evaluation report we will take to the consensus meeting, and we will look at those inconsistencies, the questions, the concerns, the differences between the opinions and the scores. There will be a quality controller who will be reviewing and quality checking that the summary evaluation reports are consistent across the board and that the scoring is consistent. Okay, that quality controller is not the observer. The observer can go into any meeting they want at any time, but the quality controller is on the consistency. The evaluation results list will be only made after all of the consensus meetings are held. And importantly, at that point, we will be comparing the results and the numbers from consensus meetings that have been held earlier on and later on. What we sometimes find is there's maybe harsher voting initially, and that can actually lead to less harsh, and no one should be penalized. So the quality controller will be comparing the results from the initial meetings to the end meetings to see that there's not significant variance between the scoring. Okay, if necessary, we can call a consensus meeting back and discuss the differences. Okay, the call coordinator will then make that call report, and that will include all of the findings in a brief summary, but there will be minutes for each meeting to back it up, individual evaluation reports to back that up, and a call report. So there will be significant documentation to back that up for the observer to look at and consider. Okay, next slide. The portfolio selection. Okay, so we talked about 100, okay, as the total mark. Only proposals ranked 60 or over will move forward to be considered. Okay, so we cannot look at every single application in the portfolio grouping. We have to look at the top. So we've set the first threshold is going to be 60. Okay, and that will be the first filter. The second filter, and this is important, the total number of proposals to be reviewed will be the total budget in the challenge area times 2. So for example, we have said that there will be 4 projects awarded in the area of future digital. In that sense, we will look at a minimum of 8 of the top proposals, okay, that equal the budget. Minimum, okay? So we will be looking at the first 8 in that. However, if we have scores which are reasonably close, we'll explain what we do there. Now, the portfolio, what does the portfolio selection do as the selection committee? We look at the business intelligence. So issues or concerns highlighted by the external experts and noted in their consensus report, we will consider. Secondly, we will consider duplication. For example, we may well have had multiple projects in mass. We may well have multiple projects in smart parking. If a proposal scores well and it is in an area where we have a strong representation and previous funding that is ongoing, that will have to be considered. We can't have an imbalanced portfolio, okay? So we will consider that. We will also consider if there is any duplication with other EU-funded programs that are currently, so we do go on to Cordis, we'll check, look at groupings, look at proposals and similarities just to make sure that the linking is done. We are not allowed to duplicate funding. Track record, we will look at the applicants and consider their previous performance on projects that have been funded, if they have delivered on their KPIs, if they delivered on their budget and the outcomes. We will look at value for money. This is important. This is a strong element this year. We will look at the cost of the project and the sustainability of that based on what's being charged. For example, we have had proposals who wanted to spend 1/3 of their budget on community building and dissemination and exploitation when there was no product for another 2 years. That's not value for money. So we look at the money being spent, is being spent on the product development and its promotion. Geographic balance, the selection committee will consider geographic balance and we have to consider across the entire portfolio. Okay, so while the experts in a challenge area are looking at just their challenge area of active mobility or the digital area of future digital, when it comes to the selection portfolio, we will have oversight of all of those 4 challenge areas and we'll be able to look at how the division looks and if we need to work on that. So that's what we'll be doing, and we will finalize the output of being the ranked list of projects, and we will finalize the recommendations and conditions given to any of those that are on the ranked list. Now, we mentioned before that we're going to do a minimum of twice the total budget that's available and the projects, but say when there's clustered scoring, okay? So we said a minimum of double. If there's clustered scoring, what we will tend to do is we will review more than the double the budget. So we'll review more than 8 projects. And what we would do to differentiate if the projects are similar, we would look at, first of all, what KPIs, and we will rank higher a startup than a marketed innovation, just so you're aware. If that was the same, we would then move to the second. What is the co-funding rate? If the rates are at 30%, if something's higher, that would then be moved up the ranking list. If it was the same and the score stayed the same, we would look at the third point, which is the city demonstrations, the commitment and evidence from the city partners and resources allocated to try and differentiate between projects which had similar scoring or clustered scoring. So please be aware, this will only come into use if we have those clustered same scores. Okay, So, questions on this? Okay. Any questions? This is an important part. I think last year some people consider this was a black box and it wasn't clearly explained, and the logical thinking that we would use. This is as transparent as we can be at this point in time.
Gareth, there is a question here.
Great.
Regarding, it says, according to internal bylaw of KIC EIT Urban Mobility, Article 15 project partners, the project partners will pay a management admin fee to the KIC LE of 20% of the requested EIT CAVA funding by the specific project partner per specific year.
Okay.
Can you please explain with more details?
Regarding the KIC LE definition, okay. The limited liability company that will be set up and wholly owned by the association. Okay, I'm really sorry, but this is such a specific question. This should be addressed to the PMO. Okay, so the question is about the fee, but then it's all about the details of how the KIC LE defines the partner or the percentage. I'm not sure. And I'm sorry, I can't give an example. This question, what we will do is we'll copy it. And if the person that's identified, Emma, you've got the name, I think, we can send an email to the PMO, put you on copy, because it's quite specific at this point and I cannot answer it because it's a little bit confusing for me. I apologize.
Not a problem. I will make sure that the PMO is able to answer that question.
The next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so how do we communicate with you? Okay, so it's the lead applicant that gets communication. So if you're in a consortium, it's your lead applicant. This is the point of contact with the organization. So they will receive a communication in the beginning of July that will have their evaluation letter and the summary evaluation report. And if your proposal has been selected, you will probably receive a list of recommendations or conditions, okay? Such as the definition of the product or service. It seems that there's two products or services. Can you clearly define what the two are and differentiate the timelines? That's the type of thing we might ask for clarification on. Or if one of the cities was demonstrating in the second year and it looked like a weak commitment from them and no involvement in the first year, we might ask you to ensure that they attended the quarterly reviews and be consistently part of the project before they have to act in the next year. And that's what you would get. After that, you will have a time to resubmit and we will open Plaza and you would be able to go in it and put those changes and the recommendations into it. And once that's done, the selection committee makes sure that the letter that was sent and what was asked and what's been changed in Plaza is correct. If a proposal has been offered to inclusion and given conditions and recommendations that haven't been met, the committee has a right to select another proposal further down the ranking list and bring that into negotiation. Okay, so that is an option. If you're given an invitation letter with a list of recommendations, it is not a guarantee you'll be funded. Okay, you have to meet the recommendations and the conditions, and we have to review that. The selection proposal, as well as the other activities, will be included in the draft business plan, which is due to by the end of September. Okay, so normally we tend to work quite madly in July to finalize all those questions. So you can go on holiday in August and we finalize some of the documentation for the end of September. Okay, so that's basically the communication of results. So it's important that someone is available within your consortium in July to address some of those recommendations or conditions that are given to you. Okay, next slide. Timelines. Okay, just to recap, I think we all know where we are. Calls open, closing, eligibility checks. The most important point is the evaluation process in June. The conditional clearing phase where we've got that letter exchange and the discussions, and we'll be on the phone to you and you'll be on the phone to us, allowing you to make the changes in Plaza. We'll check it's all correct. And by the end of August, we should have that final portfolio, the budget allocation, everything done and projections made. Okay, that's the timeline. Next slide. questions and answers now. Now, we have had the chance to be chatting with you for just about an hour, which is, as I think, is a reasonable recap of multiple discussions that have been going on today. So we just want to open up to any questions you might have now. Again, if we can answer them, we can send them to the PMO and put you on copy. We have been receiving questions coming into the Innovation Call 2022 for our team, and we have people responding every day. So you will normally get a response. If you send in on a Monday, you'll get a response by Monday evening. If you send in Tuesday, you should get a response by Tuesday evening. That we're trying to keep it quite fast. And any common questions that are being answered multiple times, such as the clarification on strategic fit, leads us to have an internal discussion, and then we will update frequently asked question document. So we are grateful when you're pointing out any inconsistencies or something that's not been clearly explained, and because everybody can benefit when you ask those questions. Okay. Anything coming in, Emma?
At the moment, no. So if anybody does have questions, we'll wait a couple of minutes and see.
Sure.
I have just posted in the chat box the call 2022@eitmobility.eu email address for questions which are more of a general nature or very specific. Oh, hold on. There will be some questions. Roman has said that he will have some questions later on about Plaza and RIS. So we
okay,
have
just so you're aware, there is going to be a RIS-specific innovation workshop, which is next Tuesday. Okay, so RIS is a big theme, and the whole push of the EIT to have better integration with the RIS in the normal thematic programs is a key theme. And that's why Bensit and I will be jointly doing a workshop on Tuesday, which will hopefully answer most of your questions. We've been working on it already for about the last 2 weeks, and we're doing some practice runs with it. So hopefully on Tuesday, you'll get those answers. Okay.
Additionally, also Thursday, the 15th of April, there is the Plaza training session in the afternoon.
Yeah, and that's Plaza. If you don't know Plaza, please have a look. Importantly, most of you won't have to do that much on Plaza. It will be the lead applicant that has to really wade through Plaza, but it might be useful for some of you to at least understand how it's done. Okay, but it's generally the lead applicant that has to work on Plaza, but I think the rest of you might be beneficial. Okay. If there's no other questions, I want to thank you for your time today. This was a rapid revisit over multiple topics that have been handled differently in one final setting. So we appreciate your time today. Please reach out. Thanks to Adriana, thanks to Emma, and use the Innovation Call website. Look forward to getting your applications. Goodbye.